Welcome back to the channel, friends. Today, we're diving into something deeply personal, yet universally experienced. The journey of letting our old pain fade into memory. Before we begin, I want to ask you to stay with me through this entire video. What I'm about to share isn't quick-fix wisdom that can be condensed into a 30-second clip. This is a gradual unfolding of ancient wisdom that has helped countless individuals across millennia transform their relationship with suffering. So please resist the urge to skip ahead. Every moment builds upon the last. Have you ever noticed how certain memories of pain seem to follow you everywhere? Perhaps it's the sting of betrayal that resurfaces whenever you try to trust again. Maybe it's the weight of failure that casts a shadow over your new endeavors. Or it could be the grief that still catches you off guard years later, making it feel as though no time has passed at all. We humans are fascinating creatures. We can recall past hurts with such vivid clarity that our bodies physically respond as if we're experiencing them anew. Our hearts race, our palms sweat, our throats tighten. The mind, in its attempt to protect us, keeps these wounds fresh, yet in doing so, it often prevents them from healing. But what if I told you that this isn't the only way to live? That there exists a philosophy thousands of years old that offers a path to transform how we relate to our suffering, a way to honor our pain without being consumed by it. The ancient Stoics of Greece and Rome developed an approach to life that didn't involve denying pain or pushing it away, but rather understanding its true nature and our relationship to it. Their wisdom feels startlingly relevant today, perhaps because human suffering hasn't fundamentally changed. The contexts shift, but the experience of pain remains a constant companion on our human journey. The nature of pain and memory. Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. These words from Epictetus, a former slave who became one of the most renowned Stoic philosophers, capture a fundamental truth about our relationship with pain. Some aspects of our suffering, particularly the initial events that wounded us, were indeed beyond our control. But how we carry these wounds forward, that lies within our power. Consider for a moment, what is a memory? Neuroscience tells us that memories aren't perfect recordings of the past. They're reconstructions, assembled anew each time we recall them. When we remember something, we aren't accessing an untouched archive. We're actively recreating the experience, influenced by our current state of mind, our beliefs, and the narrative we've built around it. This is both sobering and liberating. Sobering, because it means our most painful memories may have been unconsciously amplified over time. Liberating, because it suggests we have more agency than we realized in how these memories affect us going forward. The Stoics understood this concept intuitively. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, wrote in his personal journal, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." He wasn't suggesting that painful events aren't real or that our initial suffering isn't valid. Rather, he recognized that much of our ongoing pain comes from how we've learned to think about what happened to us, the stories we tell ourselves, the meanings we assign, and the ways we keep ourselves trapped in cycles of remembering and reliving. The dichotomy of control central to Stoic philosophy is the dichotomy of control, the recognition that some things are within our power while others are not. Epictetus framed it this way: some things are within our power while others are not. Within our power are opinion, aim, desire, aversion, and in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are body, property, reputation, office, and in a word, whatever is not of our own doing. When we apply this principle to our painful memories, a fascinating shift occurs. We cannot change the past events that hurt us, They are definitively outside our control. But our present relationship with these memories, how often we revisit them, what significance we give them, how we allow them to influence our current choices, these aspects are within our control. This isn't about forcing ourselves to get over it or just move on. Such approaches often backfire, driving pain deeper into our psyches, where it continues to affect us unconsciously. Instead, the Stoic approach involves consciously examining our pain with compassion and wisdom. Seneca, another prominent Stoic philosopher, wrote, "He who fears death will never do anything worthy of a living man." Though speaking about death, his insight applies equally to those paralyzed by past pain. When we allow old wounds to dominate our present, we live diminished lives, too afraid to trust, to try to open ourselves to new experiences that might help our pain naturally fade into memory. The illusion of permanence. One of the most powerful concepts in Stoicism is that of impermanence. Nothing lasts forever, not pleasure, not pain, not even our own identities. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself of this truth. Observe constantly that all things take place by change, and accustom yourself to consider that the nature of the universe loves nothing so much as to change the things which are and to make new things like them. Yet when we're caught in the grip of old pain, we often unconsciously treat it as permanent, an unchangeable aspect of who we are. I'm broken, we tell ourselves. I am damaged. I will never recover. These beliefs become self-fulfilling prophecies that freeze our pain in place, preventing the natural flow of transformation that is our birthright as human beings. The Stoics would encourage us to see our pain not as a fixed reality, but as a passing phenomenon, intense perhaps, significant certainly, but ultimately fluid and capable of transformation. Just as rivers change course over time, just as forests regrow after fires, our inner landscapes too can regenerate after devastation. This perspective doesn't diminish the reality of our suffering. Rather, it places it within the broader context of a life that continues to unfold and evolve. It acknowledges that while pain may be an inevitable part of the human experience, suffering, especially prolonged suffering, often comes from our resistance to the natural processes of change and healing. The practice of perspective. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been, wrote Marcus Aurelius. At first glance, this might seem like an oversimplification of suffering, but the emperor was pointing to something profound about the role of perspective in our experience of pain. Our perspective, the lens through which we view our experiences, shapes how we feel about them. Two people can go through identical hardships and emerge with entirely different relationships to those events. One might carry the pain as a defining wound, while another transforms it into wisdom and compassion. I'm not suggesting we can simply decide not to feel pain. That would be neither possible nor desirable. Pain serves important functions in our lives, alerting us to danger and injustice, connecting us to our humanity. Rather, I'm inviting us to consider how we frame our pain, how we position ourselves in relation to it. The Stoics practiced a technique called cognitive distancing, the ability to step back from our thoughts and emotions and observe them with greater objectivity. When a painful memory arises, instead of being immediately swept up in it, we can notice, I am having the thought that I was irreparably damaged by what happened. This subtle shift from I am damaged to I am having the thought that I'm damaged creates a space between us and our pain, a space where choice becomes possible. This practice isn't about denial or suppression. It's about reclaiming our power to choose how we relate to our experiences. It's about recognizing that while we may not have chosen what happened to us, we can choose how to carry it forward. Memento mori. Remember you will die. Let us prepare. Our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day. The one who puts the finishing touches on their life each day is never short of time. Seneca, the Stoics regularly contemplated death not out of morbidity, but as a way to clarify what truly matters. This practice, known as memento mori, remember you will die, serves as a powerful lens through which to view our lingering pain. When we confront the finite nature of our existence, we're faced with an urgent question. How much of our precious time and energy are we willing to devote to reliving old hurts? If we knew we had only a year left to live, would we want to spend it dwelling on past injustices, or would we direct our attention toward creating meaning and connection in the time we have left? This is not about invalidating our pain or rushing our healing. It's about recognizing that our time is the most valuable resource we possess, and how we allocate it reflects our deepest values. Sometimes, holding on to pain becomes a habit, and we continue not because it serves us, but because it's familiar. The Stoics would challenge us to consider whether this habit aligns with our highest purpose. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Every hour focus your mind attentively on the performance of the task in hand, with dignity, human sympathy, benevolence and freedom, and leave aside all other thoughts. You will achieve this if you perform each action as if it were your last." The role of acceptance. At the heart of letting old pain fade into memory lies acceptance, not as resignation, but as an active choice to acknowledge reality as it is, rather than as we wish it had been. Epictetus, who knew profound suffering firsthand, said, "Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will. Then your life will flow well." There's a misconception that acceptance means approving of what happened or denying its impact. This couldn't be further from the truth. Acceptance is about recognizing what is without wasting energy fighting against the unchangeable past. It's about saying, yes, this happened. Yes, it hurt me deeply. And yes, I'm still here, still breathing, still capable of choice. When we stop resisting the reality of our pain, when we stop wishing it had never happened or that we could somehow undo it, we free up enormous amounts of energy that can be redirected toward healing, toward growth, toward creating a life that honors our pain without being defined by it. The practice of voluntary discomfort. The Stoics engaged in a practice that might seem counterintuitive in our comfort-seeking culture. They deliberately exposed themselves to discomfort. They would wear insufficient clothing in winter, abstain from favorite foods, or sleep on hard surfaces, not out of masochism, but to strengthen their resilience and reduce their fear of discomfort. Seneca explained the rationale. Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, "Is this the condition that I feared?" This practice has profound implications for how we handle painful memories. Often, we avoid thinking about our pain because we fear being overwhelmed by it. This avoidance, however, gives the pain more power over us. It remains a shadowy, undefined threat that we organize our lives around evading. What if instead we were to turn toward our pain with curiosity and courage? What if we were to say to ourselves, "Let me see what this actually feels like right now, in this moment"? When we do this, when we voluntarily engage with our discomfort rather than fleeing from it, we often discover that it's more manageable than we feared. This doesn't mean recklessly reopening wounds or traumatizing ourselves. It means developing a relationship with our pain that's characterized by respect rather than fear. It means learning to sit with difficult emotions without being consumed by them, gradually building our capacity to hold discomfort without immediately seeking escape. From pain to wisdom. Nothing happens to anybody which he is not fitted by nature to bear, wrote Marcus Aurelius. While this might initially sound like a dismissal of suffering, the emperor was pointing to something profound about human resilience, our innate capacity to metabolize pain into wisdom. Think about the most difficult experiences of your life. Though painful, did they not also forge something valuable within you? Perhaps greater compassion for others who suffer, or deeper appreciation for joy when it comes, or clearer insight into what truly matters. The Stoics believed that adversity, properly engaged with, could be transformative. Not because suffering is inherently good, it isn't, but because our response to suffering shapes who we become. As Seneca observed, difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body. This transformation doesn't happen automatically. It requires reflection, integration, and meaning-making. It requires us to ask, what can I learn from this pain? How has it shaped my understanding of myself and others? What strengths did I discover in myself as I endured this challenge? When we engage with our pain in this way, not as a futile tragedy but as a difficult teacher, we begin to integrate it into our life story in a way that feels purposeful rather than pointless. The pain doesn't disappear, but it changes form, becoming a source of wisdom rather than just suffering. Reframing our relationship with memory. As we work to let old pain fade into memory, it's important to understand that this isn't about forgetting. It's about transforming our relationship with remembering. It's about being able to acknowledge what happened without being emotionally hijacked by it each time. The Greeks had two distinct words for memory, mneme and anamnesis. Mneme referred to simple recall, the straightforward remembering of facts or events. Anamnesis, however, described a deeper process of recollection that involved making meaning and integrating experiences into one's understanding of self and world. When painful memories arise, we can choose to engage with them as anamnesis rather than mime, not just reliving the raw emotion, but contemplating what these experiences reveal about the human condition, about resilience, about our capacity for growth and healing. This shift from simply remembering to consciously integrating allows our pain to gradually fade into memory without losing the wisdom it has offered us. We don't forget what happened, but we're no longer controlled by it. We can recall the events without being immediately plunged back into the emotional intensity of the original experience. The practice of present moment awareness. True happiness is to enjoy the present, without anxious dependence upon the future, not to amuse ourselves with either hopes or fears, but to rest satisfied with what we have, which is sufficient. The greatest blessings of mankind are within us and within our reach. A wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, without wishing for what he has not. Seneca, the Stoics, like many wisdom traditions, recognized the power of present moment awareness. When we're fully engaged with the present, we're not ruminating on past pain or anxiously anticipating future suffering. We're simply here, now, experiencing life as it unfolds. This doesn't mean we never think about the past or future. Reflection and planning are valuable. But it does mean we're not constantly pulled away from the present by regrets about what was, or fears about what might be. Our painful memories often pull us out of present moment awareness, transporting us back to moments of suffering and keeping us locked in cycles of rumination. By cultivating the ability to gently bring our attention back to the present when we notice ourselves being swept away by old pain, we gradually reduce its power over us. This practice is simple, but not easy. It involves noticing when we've been caught by painful memories and, without judgment, redirecting our attention to what's happening right now, the sensations in our body, the sounds around us, the task at hand. Over time, this cultivation of present moment awareness creates new neural pathways that make it easier to stay grounded in the now, rather than being pulled into past pain. The role of gratitude. He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. Epictetus' gratitude might seem unrelated to healing from old pain, but it's actually a powerful practice for shifting our relationship with suffering. When we focus exclusively on what we've lost or what hurt us, we reinforce neural pathways of lack and pain. When we deliberately direct our attention to what we still have, to the goodness that remains in our lives despite our suffering, we begin to create a more balanced perspective. This isn't about toxic positivity or denying the reality of our pain. It's about recognizing that our suffering, however significant, is not the totality of our experience. Even in the midst of great pain, moments of connection, beauty, and meaning are available to us. The practice of gratitude helps us access these moments. It trains our attention to notice what's good alongside what's difficult, gradually shifting our dominant narrative from one of loss and victimhood to one of resilience and appreciation. Marcus Aurelius practiced this regularly, writing in his journal, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love." Even as emperor, facing enormous pressures and personal losses, he reminded himself to notice what remained, worthy of gratitude. Amor fati, love of fate. Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart. Marcus Aurelius' amor fati, the love of fate, represents one of the most profound and challenging aspects of Stoic philosophy. It's not about passively accepting injustice or refusing to work for change. Rather, it's about facing reality exactly as it is and finding the strength to say yes to life despite its difficulties. When we resist what has already happened, we create a second layer of suffering beyond the original pain. We suffer not just from the event itself, but from our ongoing fight against reality. As the Stoics recognized, this resistance drains our energy and keeps us trapped in cycles of pain. Amor fati invites us to consider a radical alternative. What if we could not just accept but embrace our entire life story, including its most painful chapters? What if we could recognize that we are who we are, partly because of what we've endured, that our wounds have shaped us in ways that make us uniquely ourselves? This doesn't mean we would have chosen these painful experiences, or that we think they were good in themselves. It means we acknowledge that they are irrevocably part of our story, and that fighting against this reality only prolongs our suffering. Friedrich Nietzsche, who was deeply influenced by Stoic thinking, described amor fati as not merely bearing what is necessary, but loving it. This love isn't about romanticizing suffering. It's about recognizing that our capacity to integrate painful experiences into our life narrative is part of what makes us distinctly human. The community of sufferers. We are members of one great body. Nature has made us relatives when it begat us from the same materials and for the same destinies. She planted in us a mutual love and made us sociable. Seneca, one of the most isolating aspects of pain is how it can make us feel uniquely cursed or broken. When we're in the depths of suffering, it's easy to look around and imagine that others are living easier, happier lives, that there's something especially wrong with us or our situation. The Stoics would remind us that suffering is universal. No human being escapes pain entirely. While the specifics differ, the experience of being wounded, of losing what we love, of facing disappointment and difficulty, these are shared by all of humanity. Recognizing this common humanity doesn't diminish our individual pain, but it does place it in a broader context. It reminds us that we are not alone in our suffering, that others have walked similar paths and found their way through. This perspective can be profoundly comforting. It's why support groups and sharing circles are so powerful. They break the isolation of pain and remind us that our struggles, while unique in their details, are part of the human experience. Epictetus advised his students to remember that you are a citizen of the universe. This cosmic citizenship includes our shared vulnerability to suffering, as well as our shared capacity for resilience and growth, from holding on to letting go. If you work at that which is before you, following right reasons seriously, vigorously, calmly, without allowing anything else to distract you, if you hold to this, expecting nothing, fearing nothing, but satisfied with your present activities according to nature, you will live a happy life. Marcus Aurelius says, "We've explored these Stoic perspectives on pain and memory. A clear pattern emerges. The path from suffering to peace involves a gradual shift from holding on to letting go. Holding on manifests in many ways: in rumination, in resentment, in rigid narratives about our pain, in identification with our wounds. These are natural responses, and they serve important functions for a time. They help us process what happened, protect ourselves from further harm, and make sense of our experiences. But eventually, holding on becomes its own form of suffering. It keeps us bound to the past, preventing us from fully engaging with the present. It defines us by what hurt us, rather than by our capacity to heal and grow. Letting go doesn't happen all at once. It's not a single decision, but a continual practice of loosening our grip, of allowing our pain to be what it is without fighting against it or clinging to it. It's about giving ourselves permission to evolve beyond our wounds without forgetting what they taught us. This process can feel frightening. Sometimes our pain becomes so familiar that it feels like a part of our identity. We might worry, if I let this go, who will I be? What will motivate me? How will I protect myself? The Stoics would reassure us that we don't lose anything essential when we allow our pain to fade into memory. We don't forget what happened. We don't become vulnerable to the same harm again. We don't betray ourselves or others who suffered. We simply free ourselves from the continuing dominance of past pain over our present experience. Conclusion: the art of remembering well. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. As we come to the end of our exploration, I want to emphasize that letting old pain fade into memory isn't about forgetting or pretending we weren't hurt. It's about transforming our relationship with remembering. It's about developing what we might call the art of remembering well. The ability to acknowledge our painful past without being consumed by it, to carry its wisdom forward without being weighed down by its emotional charge. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process of shifting our focus, practicing present moment awareness, cultivating gratitude for what remains, and gradually loosening our identification with our wounds. Some days will be harder than others. There will be triggers that catch us off guard, moments when old pain feels fresh again. This is normal and to be expected. Healing isn't linear. It's a spiral path that sometimes brings us back to familiar territory before moving forward again. The key is to approach ourselves with compassion throughout this process. As Seneca advised, we must indulge the mind and give it rest from time to time, which will be like food to it and restore its strength. Be patient with yourself. Notice small shifts in how you relate to your pain. Celebrate moments when you're able to remember without being overwhelmed. Trust that with consistent practice, your neural pathways will gradually reorganize, allowing painful memories to become less activating over time. Remember the words of Marcus Aurelius: the impediment. To action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Your pain itself can become a pathway to greater wisdom, compassion, and resilience, not because suffering is good, but because your response to it can transform it into something meaningful. As we conclude this journey together, I invite you to consider, what would it look like to carry your painful memories more lightly? How might your life change if you could remember without reliving? What parts of yourself might flourish if they weren't constantly in the shadow of old pain? These questions aren't meant to push you toward premature resolution, but to open spaces of possibility, to remind you that while your pain is real and valid, it doesn't have to define you forever. That with time, patience, and practice, even the deepest wounds can fade into memory, not forgotten, but transformed. Thank you for staying with me through this exploration. May you find peace with your past, presence in your now, and hope for your future. Until next time, friends.